Namaste, all, and welcome to this very special beginning of Book 1, Canto 4, The Secret Knowledge. Now, how can anyone say this canto is better than another canto? Well, with our human mind, it would be foolish. But for me, Canto 4, Book 1 has always been very, very special and deeply touched my soul. So we are going to go through it slowly, as always, and with deep humility. We are going to see Sri Aurobindo telling us where we are on this earth, what is going to happen. But he begins with the first line in a very different way. He wants to tell us about Ashwapati, Lord of the horse, Lord of spiritual tapasya. On a height he stood that looked towards greater heights. And that's all he says about Ashwapati. One line. And then he begins to tell us our early approaches to the infinite are sunrise splendors on a marvelous verge, while lingers yet unseen the glorious sun. What now we see is a shadow of what must come. Notice these are two full sentences. While lingers yet unseen the glorious sun. And the next sentence, what now we see is a shadow of what must come. Now he's going to tell us about the earth and man. The earth's uplook to a remote unknown, and notice that he capitalizes the word unknown, because he tells us that the unknown can be known. If we can ascend high enough, there is no unknown any longer. All is revealed in the spiritual planes of consciousness. Even in the lowest plane, the higher mind, everything is seen in a new light. The earth's uplook to a remote unknown is a preface only of the epic climb of human soul from its flat earthly state to the discovery of a greater self and the far gleam of an eternal light. Notice that he capitalizes the word light. It's not just a light, it's an eternal light. And what does Sri Aurobindo tell us about light in the Life Divine? He says light is primarily a spiritual manifestation of the divine reality, illuminative, and creative. Material light is a subsequent representation or conversion of it into matter for the purposes of the material energy. So light is this spiritual manifestation of the divine reality. But when it descends, it does not become darkness. It just reduces the intensity of its light, and therefore it becomes a subsequent representation or conversion of it into matter for the purposes of material energy. Now, we think matter is dull, inert, nothing. But everything on this earth has all the divine consciousness within it. It may be sleeping, it may be inert, it may seem to be dead, but nothing is. This world is a beginning and a base. The other worlds are not evolutionary. They are fixed. So we have the gods in all these great worlds, but they are all fixed. They have their powers, no doubt, great powers, but they cannot evolve. Only when we descend into earth in a body can we take part in evolution. So this means that we have been taking part in this evolution for centuries beyond centuries. We have had so many births and deaths, thousands. Sri Aurobindo was asked, when the soul ascends with the psychic being into its plane of rest, how long does it stay there? And Sri Aurobindo says, it's variable, but usually only 2 years, and then we take another birth. Amazing, huh? 2 years, and then we take another birth. So after we die, just 2 years later, we're taking another birth. So you can imagine how many births we have had to be here now on this earth and participating not only in the evolution, but in the supreme descent that Sri Aurobindo brought down, the supermind. We've talked about the levels of the spiritual ranges of consciousness, beginning with the higher mind, rising into the illumined mind, rising higher into the intuitive mind, and then into the overmind, and finally into the supermind. So we have a vast work to do to transform our nature into a divine nature. Now, what was Mother doing in those 23 years after Sri Aurobindo left his body? She had already completed the transformation of the mind fully, the transformation of the vital fully, and to an extent, a partial transformation of the body. So what she was working on was the transformation of the cells of the body. And she found that the cells were conscious. And for 23 years, she worked on the transformation of the cellular aspects of the body. And she found that many of the cells awakened agreed to be transformed. And so many of the cells of her body, before she left the physical frame, were already transformed. And Mother said that this transformation of her cells was open to anyone in the entire world. In other words, that transformation will not go back. So let's take an example. There is a forest, and the seer cuts a path through it, a wide path for all of us to travel. We don't have to cut that path again. He has made the path for us. And the same with the transformation of the cells. They are entering all bodies who are open and receptive to the transformation. This world is a beginning and a base where life and mind erect their structured dreams. So what is life actually? He capitalizes the word life, and he capitalizes the word mind. So in a letter on yoga, he expresses this: life is the dynamic expression of consciousness force when thrown outward to realize itself in concrete harmonies of formation. And in another letter, life is not only a play of forces or a mental experience, but a field for the evolution of the concealed spirit. And life has no meaning other than that. Those who go about life, their work, their toil, their families, have nothing to do with the transformation. The transformation is not for everyone. It's for very few. And we all know that we're very far from it as yet. So, in his social and political thought, Sri Aurobindo writes, all life is only a lavish and manifold opportunity given us to discover, realize, express the divine. And that's why we're here. What about the mind? He capitalized mind. Mind, in its essence, is a consciousness which measures, limits, cuts out forms of things from the indivisible whole and contains them as if each were a separate integer. This is not the mind that Sri Aurobindo is talking about here, because he has capitalized the word mind. So it's very important that we understand these things. This world is a beginning and a base where life, capitalized, and mind erect their structured dreams. Well, these structured dreams are whatever we feel we are brought here on earth to do. Someone is a doctor, someone is a scientist, someone is a mathematician, someone is a laborer. And we must take cognizance of what Mother has said, and Sri Aurobindo also. Whatever the work, all work done for the divine is equally divine. And when we see these ladies sweeping the curb and the street on the beach road, if they are doing it for the divine, that work is equally divine as the greatest scientist or mathematician. There is no qualification. We'll come frequently to the terms mind and life. Structured dreams, having and manifesting a clearly defined organization. Okay, I'm going to be a doctor. What do I have to do? I have to go to college so many years. I have to study this and this. Now, do I want to specialize? So this is the structured dreams of man. But now Sri Aurobindo throws a curve to us because he says, an unborn power must build reality. And that unborn power is the divine presence in each of us, not far from us. What does the Isha Upanishad say? It is far from us, and it is very close. Oh. A death-bound littleness is not all we are. Immortal, our forgotten vastnesses await discovery in our summit selves. Unmeasured breadths and depths of being are ours. So we have to look carefully at these 4 lines. We are not a death-bound littleness. It seems that when we are born, we are already beginning to die. There's a term to life for each of us. It seems. Sri Aurobindo says, death is not necessary. And we'll go into that later on when we study death. A death-bound littleness. We are not bound towards death. A death-bound littleness is not all we are. Immortal, our forgotten vastnesses await discovery in our summit selves. Now, these 2 lines are extremely important because our mind and life and body are just a minute speck in this earthly consciousness. That's all we are. But there are forgotten vastnesses that are awaiting discovery in our summit selves, in our highest self. Everything we've ever done, everything we've ever seen. We may be walking along the street and someone passes us on a bicycle. That is recorded. It is never forgotten. That image, that experience. And there is a term in Hindu theology, the Akashic records, which tell us that everything that happens on earth, even the movement of our hand or our eyes moving, are recorded there. But there is no judgmental morality. What did Shakespeare say? Nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Immortal, our forgotten vastnesses await discovery in our summit selves. Unmeasured breadths and depths of being are ours. Now, we can access all of these. How? Through yoga, through sadhana. Right now, the world is in a difficult state. But if we are able to rise above this body, life, and mind, we will see with different eyes. And we will see that everything is still truly in its place. Wars, pain, all of these aspects of worldly life are seen in a new way, a way of a consciousness that is still far beyond ours. Akin to the ineffable secrecy, mystic, eternal, in unrealized time, neighbors of heaven are nature's altitudes. Very important. Akin means allied by nature, having the same properties, aspects, character. So akin to the ineffable secrecy. Now, this secrecy is capitalized. And Sri Aurobindo does it always for a reason. Because when he capitalizes a word, it is the essence of that word. There are not 5 or 6 definitions, there's that definition. And we have to look for these capitalizations as we go through Savitri. So, this ineffable secrecy, this quality or condition of something hidden or concealed, we are akin to it. We are almost in the same family. Mystic, eternal, in unrealized time. I have to speak to you a little bit about time, because Sri Aurobindo has so much to say about what time really is. Time for us is something very limited. Oh, it's time to go here. Oh, I forgot the time. It's always chopped up. into bits. And time, Sri Aurobindo says in a letter on yoga, time and space are not limited. They are infinite. They are terms of an extension of consciousness in which things take place or are arranged in a certain relation, succession, order. There are again different orders of time and space. That too depends on the consciousness. The eternal is extended in time and space, but he is also beyond all time and space. Timelessness and time are two terms of the eternal existence. But for the mind, this state cannot be described except by negatives. One has to go beyond and to realize it. We'll cover time much more deeply in the future, but I haven't gone very far today, so I'll read a little more. Neighbors of heaven are nature's altitudes. To these high-peaked dominions, sealed to our search, too far from surface nature's postal routes, too lofty for our mortal lives to breathe, deep in us a forgotten kinship points, and a faint voice of ecstasy and prayer calls to those lucent, lost immensities. So we have to stop here for a bit. Neighbors of heaven are nature's altitudes. To these high-peaked dominions, sealed to our search, too far from surface nature's postal routes. Here we see Sri Aurobindo's dry humor. Too lofty for our mortal lives to breathe. Both of those lines have commas, because now he's going to tell us in 3 lines, deep in us, a forgotten kinship points. So we have forgotten what? That the divine is in each of us, that we are all divine. But in the progress of working things out, yes, please. The entire world is divine. The grain of sand has the divine in it. The frog, the chameleon, the worm is divine. Equally divine. Perhaps not with a mind as we have a mind, but it does have a consciousness. That consciousness may be confined because there is no mind. But look at this line in Savitri. And in the worm foresees the coming God. And in the worm foresees the coming God. This is why only on Earth evolution takes place. Not on other planets, not in other galaxies, not in other worlds, only on Earth. And we are so privileged to be here. We must be so grateful that we have this opportunity for unlimited progress. To these high-peaked dominions, sealed to our search, too far from surface nature's postal routes. You know, a postal route, they used to have these vehicles that go around from house to house, or postmen. And I remember this great horticulturist who said that this postman learned to appreciate the beauty of roses because he delivered from house to house the mail every day. And just a simple thing like that one could open to the beauty of roses. Sri Aurobindo speaks to us about the rose and its perfection, but for another time. Too far from surface nature's postal routes, too lofty for our mortal lives to breathe, deep in us a forgotten kinship points, and a faint voice of ecstasy and prayer calls to those lucent, lost immensities. We have been there. We have been there in other lives. We have seen those immensities. But each time we come back down to earth, there is a forgetfulness. We don't remember who we truly are. And this is actually a good thing. And Mother said, it is not necessary to remember past births, because the ego gets in the way. Oh, I was a king in the last birth. I was a queen in the last birth. See, the ego can play all kinds of games with us. So, best not to attempt to remember past births, but certainly some of us do, and some of us have had that experience. But it is minor compared to the work we are asked to do now, and that is to transform this human being into a divine being. So, I'm going to continue a little more. We have 10 minutes, and this passage is so important. We should try to memorize some of it. Deep in us, a forgotten kinship points, and a faint voice of ecstasy and prayer calls to those lucent, lost immensities. Even when we fail to look into our souls or lie embedded in earthly consciousness, still have we parts that grow towards the light. This is so important. Sri Aurobindo writes very fluently of our evolutionary movement to the heights. He says, even if we turn away from the light or go backward for a while, still we are progressing. What hope that gives us. What great hope. We can fall, we can fail, we can make so many errors. Doesn't matter. We are still progressing towards the light. Even when we fail to look into our souls or lie embedded in earthly consciousness. Now we're hearing that word embedded all the time. They were embedded in this place, in this war zone, etc. Fixed in it. Still have we parts that grow towards the light. Yet are there luminous tracks and heavens serene and Eldorados of splendor and ecstasy. Well, Eldorados is an interesting word, the El Dorado. It's a Spanish term, and it used to be a mythical place or an imaginary place where these 16th century explorers searched for gold. A place of great wealth and opportunity. And I have to go to the next page because we can't stop there. And temples to the Godhead none can see. A shapeless memory lingers in us still. And sometimes, when our sight is turned within, earth's ignorant veil is lifted from our eyes. There is a short, miraculous escape. Perhaps all of you have had this experience at one time or another. You're sitting silently and a bird sings. Or you're walking along a path and you see the butterflies around the flowers. Or you're looking at the sea and a vastness descends on you. These are these short, miraculous escapes. I know that all of you have had them in one way or another. We see a newborn child and something awakes in us. We watch someone dying and there is a silence that comes. I will tell you the story of my mother, who was a very difficult lady, always beating down on my father, very strict with her children, and not too well educated. So it comes the time for her to die. And she tells all of her family, she had 4 brothers and 3 sisters, I want this kind of coffin, I want blue silk, and I want my pink dress. And I will not go to a hospital, I will die in the house. So my aunt calls me from I'm living in New York City, and she said, you better come, we think it's time. So I walk into the house and I say, hi Mom, I was in the area. She said, baloney, I know why you're here. So the next day she gets very bad. and she's in tremendous pain. And the doctor says, you can only give her Demerol every 8 hours. But she's in such pain, my father says, give it to her whenever she needs it. But he can't do it anymore. He's incapacitated. He's in such stress. He says, you have to do it. So I have to give the injections to my mother. Now, it comes to her last moments. She's totally rigid. You feel she's going at any moment. And suddenly she turns her entire body towards my father and smiles at him with such love, a love that I had rarely ever seen. And then she leaves the body. Everyone is, of course, in tears. Everyone is crying. And suddenly, this peace descends into the room. And it's so strong, it's almost like a block of ice. And everyone stops crying. And it's such a peace. Like Christ said, a peace that passeth all understanding. And as we're sitting there, totally silent, this perfume enters the room. I have never smelled a perfume more beautiful than that. And I had the experience that this was an old soul who had returned to earth to work things out in a different body. And that is how I remember my mother now. So we will continue next week. And I will conclude with these lines. This narrow fringe of clamped experience we leave behind, meted to us as life. Meted is, I think from the French, allotted to us, sometimes unpleasant. This narrow fringe of clamped experience we leave behind, meted to us as life. Our little walks, our insufficient reach. Our souls can visit in great lonely hours still regions of imperishable light, all-seeing eagle peaks of silent power and moon-flame oceans of swift, fathomless bliss and calm immensities of spirit space.